Welcome into PFF Rewind. It's your 2010 Green Bay Packers edition. We've done this for the 2007 New England Patriots, the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. Be sure to check those out on the YouTube channel. And don't forget, all this great data is a part of Premium Stats 2.0, all a part of your PFF Elite package. Sam, Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers. I think the first thing to notice here on offense was Aaron Rodgers sitting atop with that 92 overall grade.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is the Packers have always been about how far Aaron Rodgers is going to take them, and this was Aaron Rodgers pretty much at his best, and when he is that good, this team is going to be contending for a Super Bowl, and this was the year they got it over the edge.
Yeah, he was outstanding throughout the playoff run, but it was a pretty well-balanced offense. When you just look at his, let's start with this offensive line. I want to get to his playmakers in a minute, but the offensive line with Josh Sitton, who, you know, one of the fun things we get to do here at PFF is make the Hall of Fame case for some of these guys when we have their full data set. Josh Sitton might actually have a case that maybe he wouldn't have had if PFF didn't exist, but Sitton at guard, Scott Wells at center, Darren College at guard, Chad Clifton at tackle. That's four guys at 70 plus in the grading, and then a rookie, Brian Bulaga, at 63, a pretty respectable grade. That's some pretty good grading on the offensive line for the Packers.
Right, this is a lot like that 2007 New England Patriots offense we looked at in a previous video. The offensive line, when it's really good, is going to help the entire unit look an awful lot better. So Aaron Rodgers, playing to the best of his ability, immediately gets helped out when your offensive line is suddenly playing at an extremely high level. We saw the same thing with Tom Brady in 2007. Obviously, Brady was spectacular. Randy Moss was spectacular. But how much of that would have been impacted upon if the offensive line hadn't also been spectacular? And you got a sequence of plays that were blown up because the pass rush gets home. The same story here. Look at the number of snaps these guys were pass blocking for. 800 snaps of pass blocking across the entire season. That would not have been as successful if that offensive line hadn't been so good.
In five starters that were over 1,000 snaps, it did show just how healthy they were up front as well. And then you look at the playmakers. They had Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, James Jones, Donald Driver, even though it was toward the tail end of his career. So multiple receiving options, and then Jermichael Finley, only 5 games from him, so they had to piece it together with the rest of the tight ends down here who were not as good, but when Jermichael Finley was out on the field, he was like a 6th wide receiver to add to the mix here as well.
Right, and when he was healthy, he was one of the first of that wave of mismatched tight ends that obviously are so prevalent in today's NFL, but Jermichael Finley, right at the start of his career, was spectacular in that regard, a complete nightmare to try and match up against.
All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. It was an interesting mix here. Dom Capers' defense, always extremely aggressive, love to blitz, and the name at the top might surprise some people, Desmond Bishop, who was a versatile linebacker, who was really strong against the run, but you see this 90.2 pass rush grade. Think of him as more of a blitzer. He wasn't an edge defender, but he blitzed 90 times with 23 total pressures. I think that just kind of sums up what the Packers were back then, in aggressive defense getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, and then remember back when Clay Matthews actually had a lot of production. 74 pressures off the edge for Clay Matthews. Once upon a time, he was a legitimate, dominant edge rusher that could really bring some pressure. And then the other name I think to note when it comes to pass rushing was B.J. Raji. He was for years this kind of, what exactly is he? He's a nose tackle, or a 3 technique trapped in a nose tackle's body, a guy who really was at his best rushing the passer at times, but just didn't look like he should be. And I don't know that those players are ever put in a great position to succeed because they're typically just shoehorned into the position they look like they should be playing. But Raji had 51 total pressures. That's a pretty impressive number for any interior player, but particularly for a nose tackle. You combine him with Clay Matthews, those two combined for an awful lot of pressure up front for the Packers.
And Raji very rarely came off the field, over 1,000 snaps for him as well. Of course, that does include the playoffs, but you mentioned it, a 53.9 grade against the run, but over 70 as a pass rusher to go with those 51 pressures. So he was not always, the prototype at nose tackle. An interesting pair for him, though, it was him and Cullen Jenkins, who had really a few years, a stretch where he was one of the more efficient interior rushers. He had 45 pressures as well, so the Packers really got after it with their front four. Guys like Raji and Jenkins and Clay Matthews. We already mentioned Desmond Bishop, but I said they like to blitz, so you have a guy like A.J. Hawk, who blitzed 174 times. That's the other linebacker in the middle with Desmond Bishop. They loved getting after the quarterback. He had 17 pressures. And then Charles Woodson. Now, his grade wasn't as high as it was in 2009. He was spectacular in that 2009 season, did absolutely everything. But in this scheme, he was part corner, slot corner, part linebacker, part safety. He really did it all, and the Packers tapped in to all of the many things that Woodson could bring to the table.
Absolutely, and again, the number you're highlighting there, the number of times he pass rushed, 107 times that essentially Charles Woodson, a defensive back, blitzed. And again, those guys were chipping in with serious amounts of pressure. 17 total pressures for Woodson, 17 total pressures for A.J. Hawk, another consistent team amongst all these extremely good Super Bowl winning teams is how much pressure they were able to get throughout their entire defense. It wasn't just one guy bringing the heat. You go down the list and there is a ton of players that were generating double-digit amounts of pressure all the way through this defense. When you're able to get heat from all across your D, it's extremely difficult for an offense to dial in on the one threat and take him away and not have to worry about it. You have to worry about pressure coming from everywhere on this defense, and that's just more difficult for an offense to contend with.
Let's wrap it up with the cornerbacks, because if the Green Bay Packers are going to win another Super Bowl, they're probably going to need similar performances to what they got that year with the rest of their cornerback group. So can it be Jair Alexander? Can it be Josh Jackson stepping up? Kevin King? Who's it going to be for the Packers? Because when they won the Super Bowl, look at Tramon Williams, 82 grade, 83 in coverage, and then Sam Shields, a young Sam Shields with a 71 coverage grade. And look at some of the passing numbers, 43.8 passer rating when targeting Tramon Williams, 15 pass breakups, 9 interceptions. He was making a ton of plays on the ball. Sam Shields was solid as well. So when you look at the value that those guys brought on the outside, paired with Woodson in the slot, it was really an excellent trio at corner for Green Bay and a big part of why they made that Super Bowl run.
Yeah, when your number one corner is allowing fewer than 50% of targets sent his way to be caught, that's an impressive number. And Tramon Williams is a 45.5 that season, despite 123 targets.
They were targeting him.
Right,
yes.
It's not like they went away from him because he was successful. They threw the ball his way a ton. 123 targets, just 56 catches for that incredible completion rate.
So there you have it. It's your 2010 Green Bay Packers PFF Rewind. Let us know if there's any teams in the PFF database back to 2006 that you guys want us to break down. And don't forget, it's all a part of Premium Stats 2.0 in your PFF Elite package.